Hello, hello. So I'm here going live. I don't know how long for. I can make this a marathon session. Who knows? But I do want to invite a couple of people in to have a chat with me about why it is that I believe you should take part in Jason Fladlien's Unite Challenge that is running from today for the rest of this week. So today's session is really powerful. We've had a bit of a pre-training. I did share the video link to that. I probably shouldn't have, but I did. And yes, it was all about reframing beliefs and pretty much the self-talk that we give to ourselves, which can be really destructive at times. And sometimes just the habits that we have and the way that we see things are running on a default programming. So just with a few simple questions, you can actually start to change the beliefs that you have, particularly about yourself. And through the week, there's going to be more that will go from just inside of yourself into others, how you judge or believe things, or, kind of almost even subconsciously of filtering the information that comes through to you. So it's going to be a really powerful challenge this week. You can actually join the challenge by going to roamingincome.com/unite. And yeah, if you're here and you want to have a chat about if you happen to see Jason's pre-challenge training video that was talking all about beliefs, please let me know. Leave a comment, or I can send you a link to come in and have a chat if you're actually wanting to do that. So with using StreamYard, I'm actually streaming live both to a YouTube channel that we have as well as to the Roaming Income group. And I'm going to stick around as long as is necessary. And, hopefully I can keep chatting here on my own. If I can't, I'll send a link off to Nat, who's working downstairs in our amazing beachside house. I'll just quickly show you the view that I have from my desk. So that's what I'm looking out at. Pretty cool, hey? So it's good at this time of day because the sun is over in the east, which is the mountains out the other window there. But by the afternoon, it gets a little bit warm in here, so I do have to close the curtains and lose my view, which is a little bit hard, but we can deal with it. I could always just go outside and have a look as well. So yes, this challenge, I've had a lot of people actually asking me, like, what's it for? What's it about? Is it going to be like a big pitch at the end of it? Isn't that what challenges do? And it's sort of like, yes, there is an offer at the end, and Jason is really keen to help people step up and be the biggest and best versions of themselves. And yeah, it's got to do with, literally learning what you can through this week. This is a guy that gets paid tens of thousands of dollars for consulting, and he's showing up live for a week to give the best of the best training with regards to your mindset, with regards to how you show up in the world, and more than anything, with regards to how we can all unite to make the difference that is required in the world right now. So he's a big believer, which is, hugely resonating with me, on everything starts within. How we view the world outside of us is a direct reflection of how we view what's going on inside of us. So when you can actually start to look inside first, if you've got little stories that say things like some of my stories, I'm not a good writer, or I hate writing, it's so easy to reframe those beliefs and be able to change the story, change the script. So if you're changing the script within, whether it be anything from your health side of things, relationship side of things, financial side of things, you can change the script and the dialogue and the narrative that goes on between your sub and unconscious minds into creating what is your reality. So when enough people do that, when enough people actually start looking at what's going on inside, there's a ripple effect. It's a natural kind of energy ripple effect that happens to the people around you. And then more of people doing that starts to have a ripple effect, bigger, broader, and even worldwide. And that is really kind of the essence of what the Unite Challenge is. If we can all show up being not just the best versions of ourselves, that's sort of like personal development 101. This is more than that. This is like showing up and seeing the world differently, seeing what is playing out with the mindset of complete balance, the balance of, yes, there's a lot of quote unquote negativity and horrible things happening in the world right now. But if you can look at the balancing side of that, to actually say, well, what good is coming out of it? Then you can start to kind of ease the seesawing or the roller coastering that goes on within your mind. So at this point, I'm actually going to send Nat a link to come in and have a chat, because she is she's actually a DeMartini facilitator, and a lot of Dr. DeMartini's work has always been around balancing the mind, how to actually, stop weighing yourself down and carrying this load of hard core baggage around with you, when it can just be kind of looked at in perspective and changed to view the situation that you experienced a different way, to be able to let it go and be able to move on. So Nat's just saying, do you want me to come in? And I'm just going to say, yep, if you can. So I can get the DeMartini facilitator to talk more about that in particular. So she's just going to be a minute there coming in. But yeah, with the, I don't know, there's a few people, particularly in the Make Money Online space, that are people that I know may have seen a recent challenge done by Pedro Aseo, and he was getting all fired up about uniting people. He didn't use the word unite, but it's like, gathering people or your tribe as such to kind of push against something, or to stand up for something. And really where we're coming from with the Unite Challenge that Jason is doing this week, it's not about pushing against anything. It's not about resisting things and, looking at what can I ultimately judge and refuse to accept, and instead come back in and go, okay, how am I seeing this now? How is it serving me? How is it not serving me? And how is it that I can reframe the way that I'm seeing who I am in the picture? There's a guy from a community that I'm involved in. He's just hilarious. He's actually a stand-up comedian, but he will actually talk about, how you are at the scene of every crime in your life. So I've just got Nat here now, so I'm just going to pull her up onto the screen. There we go. Hello. To plug in my Ella.
Hello upstairs.
Make sure I can actually hear you. Hello downstairs. So I was just making mention around the Unite Challenge on a whole is not about pushing against something, resisting something, or standing up for something. It's kind of looking at the much bigger picture of how, if we look at our own way of viewing the world right now, and if we're deeming something as being negative, sad, a tragedy, that there is a way to actually look the other side and balance it a little bit, to almost even let it go. But overall, the Unite Challenge is about starting within, and how the ripple effect with how we're seeing or balancing our own mind, how that ripple effect can have a difference on others around us and then end up going worldwide. So I'd mentioned to everybody that with your facilitator role with Dr. DeMartini many, many moons ago, this is a lot of the work that you actually did. And particularly if you want to share with people, not the full stories, but just sort of the people that you worked with that had dealt with some pretty major trauma, and how you helped them rebalance and look at how to view the situation differently and ultimately let it go.
I think before I do that, something that just sparked with me when you were just talking, something I heard just recently, is that a creator is never against anything. So a true creator is for everything. So you never fight against anything that's been created. So I just thought that was really interesting. It's something I've been sitting with for the last few days, and that's like, it's very true.
It's very powerful, yeah.
Really,
and it goes against the grain of what is actually being talked about at the moment. You know, we've got protests happening. We've got, you know, people standing up to kind of, you know, have their say and make a difference and all these things. But it's sort of, what if the whole entire healing of the planet happens opposite to how we think it should happen?
Yeah, and I think this is a really big wake-up call for people to actually look at things differently, because the way we're doing it is not fucking working, basically.
That's probably, and that's like the definition of insanity. Keep doing the same thing over and over, hoping for a different result.
It's not working. It has worked in the past, absolutely, but things have changed. They absolutely 100% have changed. And it's not just because of COVID, but the whole consciousness has changed as well. So we have to catch up. And the stuff that's, my belief is, the stuff that's happening right now is that wake-up call. So we're all being called to look at things differently. And part of that is that balancing, like you're talking about. It's interesting, you know, the whole idea of good and bad, positive and negative, are all just human concepts. They don't come from the infinite space where we all actually came from. They actually are just subjective things from people. So you look at something and I look at something and we look at it totally differently, and everybody's doing exactly the same thing. So what is good and bad, right and wrong, all that sort of stuff? Like, no wonder we're all fighting with each other, because we all have different definitions of right and wrong, because we're meant to. So it's like, how do you actually have a society that runs on those concepts? And so it's probably no wonder that we're all over the shop all the time and fighting with each other, and that, because that's going to be the outcome of that. So
if that's an inherent human trait, then how do we actually not do that? Or is it a case of still doing it, but doing it with a higher awareness and conscious view?
The mind splits things into positive and negative, good and bad, because that's what it does. But it also has the ability to see both sides to things, and both sides are always there, because everything is neutral. So there is no more positive than negative or negative than positive. So when we did the positive thinking movement, it screwed a lot of people up, because they were trying to go more one side than the other, and it's impossible. Quantum physics has been showing this for, you can't do it. For decades, quantum physics has actually been showing us this. It's impossible to split atoms into positive and negative and not have the other one actually be affected by, you know, if I take one atom here and I split it, and I take take one half of it over the other side of the world, when I spin this one in one direction, the other one actually does the same thing in the other direction over the other side of the world. That actually, you can't possibly split them, which means you can't split positive and negative. It's impossible. But we do it as human beings, and then we suffer the consequences of doing that. So bringing the two sides back together again, which is a lot of the work that I did do for a long time, was to actually start to bring the balance back to situations that people had gone through. And I took people through some pretty horrendous situations over the years. You know, murders of their parents, where they watched that happen, incest, rape, just all sorts of really...
Okay, so before we talk about that kind of trauma aspect, when you say that the effect aspect, so okay, if you're carrying this trauma that you have in your body, what is that weight of almost purposely going against the spinning of the two sides? What is that doing to the body? Like, what is it actually doing to you?
Creating disease. That's what happens. Dis-ease. So being in balance is complete neutrality, is ease and grace, is peace. All the things we're working towards, all the stuff that we would love to have in our lives, actually is a normal part of being in neutrality. So it's only when we go out of neutrality and we try to label something more good than bad, or more bad, generally more bad than good, and more negative than positive, is that we suffer the consequences of that. We feel that internally, because that's not our natural state.
Okay, so from that, the people that you've worked with, and you've worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of people where they are carrying a trauma, and inside their body, it's like there's this dis-ease, if not manifesting into a
Yeah.
full disease,
Yeah.
and how they're showing up in the world is affecting other people. So it is a string-on effect. So,
Yeah.
what would happen when you could help people see the other side of a traumatic experience that they had gone through?
That was the most amazing. The reason I did it for so many years was because of that one moment in time when somebody finally stops fighting with their ego and stops thinking that there's more negative than positive, and they'll fight you the whole time through the process. Like, it was never an easy process to go through, because this is the way we get brought up thinking, is like rape is negative, wars are negative, like all these different things that are negative, and we never start to look at the other side of them and actually how they support our story here. And so to try and work against the brain and the mind to actually start to look at the other side of those things is a hard process, definitely, for some people. They really fought. But then there was a one moment where they finally got it, and it just sort of, you can see, and they talk about the quantum collapse process. So that's pretty much what happens, is the whole story and the ego that built that entire thing up, sometimes for decades, finally just under its own weight just collapses. And finally the truth comes through. And you can see that person, and they just completely change in their entire physiology. And they just sit there and they go, oh my God, it actually was really supportive, that whole thing that happened. I was like, yes. And it's like, it's made you who you are today. You wouldn't be the person you are today if you didn't go through those experiences. And it's like, oh my God, I finally get it. And this weight that drops from people is just massive sometimes.
So
the entire world just changes all of a sudden.
And that sort of happened even just for us the other day when we were watching Jason talk about that. I would sum it up as sort of reframing beliefs. So a guy that was watching typed in, he said, I can't lose weight, or I struggle to lose weight.
Yeah.
And everything I've tried, I've failed at. So when Jason reframed that gave you a really big insight, didn't he? Didn't it? Because it was, he ended up seeing, well, you share the story.
Sorry, you've...
Oh, no, just when Jason sort of reframed that, he was like, why are you thinking that you failed at losing weight when perhaps your body has been succeeding in helping you find a way to stay healthy, because perhaps that particular diet or eating program or something wasn't actually right for you.
Yeah, that's right. It's interesting. Like, we have a whole bunch of beliefs that go on. We have foundational beliefs that we get from our parents, and they stay pretty much strong right throughout our entire life. They're really hard to fight against. And it's not about fighting against those beliefs either. They're allowing them to be there and actually just seeing them. But then there's other beliefs that we've gained over the years, like I can't lose weight. So it's really interesting to then, because all beliefs can be reframed, because they're not true. No belief is true. They're all
how challenging is that?
Yeah, they're all made up stories. At some point in your life, you created a survival mechanism for whatever reason, and that was your belief. It resulted in that. The ego is always trying to survive, so it comes up with beliefs to actually keep going. And it's, you've just created it. It's a story you've created in your head. You can change it just as easily as you created it, but sometimes it feels like it's really difficult. So that reframing is actually a really clever way of doing it. It's pretty much like just balancing the mind back out. So I can't lose weight is like a negative aspect to that belief, and all you got to do is look at it and go, either you haven't failed yet, because that's often sort of, I failed, I haven't been able to lose weight type thing. It's like, yeah, but you're still going, you're still here, you're still alive, you haven't stopped the process of being able to lose weight yet. Like, there is no destination at this point. But also, the success thing as well is that, okay, well, maybe you weren't meant to lose weight in that way. So maybe you're actually really successful in stopping losing weight in that way, because it wasn't going to be the healthiest way for you. So it's sort of the other, again, looking at the other side of it, going, oh, there might be another perspective here. And that's when you're really polarized and you're very black and white, you only do get to see one side of things quite often, and you miss a whole other world that's going on in the other dimension, when you change perspectives. And that's
well, and I think that perspective thing, and particularly with regards to the Unite Challenge on a whole, is the ability to see another person's perspective is sometimes the easiest way to balance. It's like you've got your experience and you've labeled it in this way and you have beliefs around it, but somebody else who might have been involved in whatever the situation is, and we could really talk about, say, what started all these riots and protests and everything in the States right now is there were two people involved. There was a guy who was pinned to the ground and the officer who was pinning him to the ground. So there's two different perspectives of what was happening in that situation. How do each of them see them? And unfortunately, unfortunately the man lost his life, so we can't get his opinion on that. But yeah, from that sort of situation of what happened, there's two movie scripts or two stories or two experiences happening.
Always two different experiences happening, and they're very different. And so a person looks at their own experience and believes it to be true, but the person standing next to you is doing exactly the same thing, and they're having a very different experience to you. So that's why we are often at loggerheads with each other, because we're not seeing the other person's point of view type thing. It's difficult to do that. And it's particularly difficult to do that when you're a very black and white thinker about what's right and wrong. And so it really is, I guess, the more you become conscious, the more you let go of those concepts of right and wrong, good and bad, positive and negative and all that, and things just become as they are. So you start to see actuality rather than reality. So reality is what you see, and then what the other person sees is their reality. But what actuality is what's actually happening and taking place in that moment. And we very rarely see that. We rarely see taking in everything that's going on, because the mind can't do that. Like there's 4 billion, I think it is 4 billion pieces of information that's coming at us every second. You can't possibly take all that in. You're not meant to. We take in 2,000 pieces of information every second. And so somehow or another you have to filter all that. And that's what your beliefs are doing. Your beliefs are filtering, taking those 4 billion pieces of information and giving you 2,000 of it. So depending on how you see the world and what you believe to be true is the 2,000 pieces of information that you will get given.
Well, Jason actually talked about it as a how do you gather knowledge? And it's like when you've got those, we've all got them. We've all got the beliefs sort of. I have this vision all the time that it's like around the back of your head. It's kind of like your subconscious or your unconscious is around the back of your head. I don't know why. Maybe it's like a neck pillow that you wear. But those things that you're not aware of, the things that sort of cause the autopilot stuff. So as information is coming to you, and we'll call it knowledge. And this is like whether you're watching the news, whether you're talking, or whether you're physically studying. And the three things he mentioned was bringing those bits of information in. You will either generalize, you'll delete, or you'll distort. Yeah. And that's kind of just this standard thing that happens. So when he goes live later today, it's going to be 12 noon Pacific, which will be 1 p.m. for us on Mountain Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. It's going to be a crappy time in Australia and New Zealand, but in the evening in the UK. He's going to be talking about personal, individual beliefs to start with. And I feel, I mean, I've sort of opened up a couple of cans of worms here talking about some of these like global situations right now, but I feel that we can't jump out into sort of trying to fix that actuality or that movie that we're seeing outside of us, whether it be in our physical space or whether it be through the TV screen or what we're hearing from other. We can't fix any of that unless we start in here first.
Definitely. Yeah, it's not about the outside world. When you really look at consciousness, there's a thing called the law of reflection, which means that everything that you're seeing in the outside world is a pure reflection of consciousness that's going on for you inside. And so because there is only oneness, there is only one universal energy, we are all parts of that. So, and all reflections of each other. So if I see something that I don't like in somebody else, it's because I haven't accepted that part in myself, that trait in my own self. So it's an opportunity for me not to blame the other person. That's actually just putting my energy into the wrong direction. If I turn it inwards, I get to see things about myself. And so I then get to go through the process of accepting that part of myself. And then when I do that, then whatever that person does now doesn't worry me anymore. So people only worry you outside and cause issues for you outside because of parts of yourself that you haven't seen yet. So, which is a bit of a hard pill to swallow at times. But also what you admire in other people is what you actually appreciate in yourself as well. That's why you admire it. So you can't see something outside of yourself if it wasn't inside of you in the first place. It's impossible. So it's an opportunity. And to the outside world is nothing more than that, than your reflection. So when we start putting our power into the outside world, then we've lost our own power. We've stopped being empowered ourselves. So it's an opportunity to reclaim your power from those things. If you feel like the banking system has a control over you, or the government, or your ex, is causing you issues and stuff like that, you've put your power into those things. And so you have an opportunity to get that back if you wish.
And so what would be the outcome of that? Like if you actually did reclaim your power from, I'm going to use the example because we house sit, and I'm on 2 channels here that pretty much everyone would know that. But every now and again, if we come across one of our chargers, like one of our dogs or cats, whatever, that literally is just doing things to annoy the crap out of us, if we have our power in them annoying us all the time, like what's the situation? Like if we reclaim that power, do they stop doing the thing, or is it just?
No, they might still keep doing it. So that pet might still do the same thing. Your ex might still do the same thing, but it's not going to worry you anymore. Won't have any effect on you. You're just like, whatever. And we've all experienced that.
So to me, the only thing that comes to mind there is relief. And I remember hearing Abraham from Esther Hicks talking about the cure to all dis-ease and disease is relief. Do you agree with that? Like, do you agree that sort of relief, or are you kind of consciously beyond that now?
I push back on that now because I believe that the tension that gets created for you in that situation is no mistake. And that tension, if you sit with it, rather than actually try and relieve it, which is what most people end up doing, by either justifying it in your head, to having somebody, put an arm around you, or eating, overeating, or like, we have so many different strategies of how to actually find relief from things when they're uncomfortable. But what we miss out on is the creativity that comes from that tension. That tension is there for a reason. And your creativity actually sits in that tension. It takes tension to create a new reality. So instead of running from it, it's actually almost go into it and actually be with it, be with the tension, and sit with it.
Okay, so this gives me a perfect opportunity for you to actually now share your most recent experience of creating from the tension, from the space of discomfort. Because I'm going to hold up the image again of what was created.
I was going to say, do you want to see what was created? Yeah. When this listing came up for this house, I said to you, we should apply for it. And at that stage, I was like, I don't know, I was probably having a bit of fun with it, really. And I was just like, we should just apply for it type thing. It looks really cool.
And how much resistance did I give you? Like, it's been up for too long, there's too many people. We still haven't sorted out the other thing we were supposed to do.
And so that's the tension that gets created. The stories come up. So it's interesting. You can either buy into the story, or you can stay true to yourself and what feels true for you and in that time. So what felt true for me was for you to write the email.
And you're a delegator while you're at it.
And I like to delegate that part of my my house setting. So
your creation process. Yeah.
So I think I did help. I think I started it and then you took over. But what it's interesting. So in that moment you have a choice. It's either do what feels true for you, or buy into the story and not do what feels true for you. So this is the true choice that comes up. So it was like, no, I can recognize the stories. Yep, they've come up. That's interesting. That's cool. Put them over there. I'm going to do what feels true for me. So we wrote off our message, and then the stories started coming up for me. It's like, oh, the listing's been up for days. This probably won't, they'll be lucky to even open the email type thing. Like, you can see the justification starting. They'll be lucky to open the email because it's been so many days. And I know that, past shows me that most people, if they've been inundated, which they will have been, like, see all these assumptions coming up now, they will have been inundated with people because it's in the Baja. It's a beautiful place. They're on Trusted House Sitters, and they're one of the biggest platforms. So all this story, is this even true? I've got no idea. I've got no idea what the homeowners have actually even gone through. So you can see the story starting. And these are beliefs. My beliefs are that, if you're on Trusted House Sitters, then it's going to be really hard to get, blah, 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 all this stuff. So
and those things come from like direct experience, but quite a bit of assumption stuff too. It's
exactly.
still
and
I would even go as far to say that even though you are when you get your certainty on, like your certainty just like changes reality in a heartbeat, but there may still be a little in the neck pillow, that little bit of unconscious or subconscious sitting there sort of going like, yeah, but maybe I won't get it. Like maybe I should have like a bit of a plan B or something. Like there's sort of something playing there.
Yeah, but the funny thing was I didn't have a lot of certainty in this case. So it was really interesting. I was more playing with it to see whether we would get it. So sometimes I do have absolute certainty and I just stick with that certainty. There would be stories come up and they just pass. That's it. It's like, yeah, whatever. So I stick with that certainty, like 100% energy on that. But I didn't actually have that in this case. So it created a lot of tension. So here's what I want. So the house sit that I want over here. Here's me sitting here now with all the stories. And so there's a tension. It feels like to me from my stomach to the thing that I'm wanting, like an elastic band, and it's tight. It's really tight. And it's and so that's the tension that gets created. And I could feel it. Like I could actually feel it from my physical self. So I was like, okay. And then the mind starts to kick in with justifications and all sorts of things. And it's like, oh, I'm looking for relief now. I can see myself naturally trying to relieve this tension because that's what we do. And I was like, no, I'm going to stay with it. I'm going to stick with this tension and see what happens. So at this stage, it became almost an experiment to get this place, to see whether it was more about the creative process than actually getting this place at that point. I wanted to just play with it. So knowing that the tension actually is the thing that's pulling you towards the thing you're after. So
I like that visualization.
It's actually the tension is pulling you towards that. But you have to go through that tension. You can't relieve it. So I didn't have a lot go on that first afternoon because we replied in the afternoon. But the next day I was starting to do some work in the morning, and it wasn't gelling like what I was doing. And I was like, no, I've got to stop. I've got to stop, and I've got to go out to the grass, and I've got to sit on the grass and ground for a little bit. And so that's when I did the work on it. So I could feel the tension of the thing. And I kept saying, I choose the end result of this place, this house set. And I just kept saying that to myself. And the more I said it to myself, the more tension I felt. So it's like, okay, this is interesting. Stay with it, stay with it, stay with it. Again, feeling that physical feeling again in the stomach. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then I don't know what time it was. It was like mid-morning or something, late morning, that we got the email from the owners to say, can we talk at 2:00? I was like, oh my God, that's really funny. But the tension didn't go away. So it was just interesting to observe that it actually was still there. I was like, okay. So to me, what was happening was I was still being pulled in to the creation. It hadn't been created yet. So the energy was still there. So stay with it. So there is no mistakes to anything. I wasn't doing anything wrong. It actually was a process that was meant to be happening at that point. So you don't pull out of it. And then, so then we had the conversation. I didn't think it was dramatically amazing conversation with them.
No, it was very sort of normal in comparison. And even if we look at previous ones, we've had different ones in the past where we've gone, oh, that's ours, like 100%. And we didn't have that after this one.
Still did not have that feeling. And I was like, okay, still being created then, like it's not created yet. So there's no outcome to anything yet, like we don't have a decision made. So then I was like, stay with it. And then 40 minutes later or something, we got the email to say it's yours. I was like, holy shit. So I was more staggered that it worked.
And we did not expect it in such a short time either.
No, it was really short. And I think that's the thing, is like we think creation of things take, weeks or months or whatever. Like creation happens in a moment. So it can anyway. So it was literally about, I don't know, maybe 18 hours or something, 12 hours or something that it took to actually create this place. And
it was a very different experience.
Yeah, just so surprised.
Yeah, for me, it was a very different experience because I have seen you do two things in the past. One is when you have that absolute certainty, for whatever reason, it's like it's already created and you're just waiting for it to catch up to you. It was almost like you pull in certain things. And I've also seen you, which we now know is when, say, as we quote unquote call it, the ego kicks in, where you'll set an intention or a goal, but then you get really attached to it and you're like going, no, but it's going to be this. And you keep almost talking yourself. So it's almost like that positive self-talk. It's like, I'm going to get what do people do? Like affirmations, like these kind of affirmation things. This is ours, we're going to get it. When we don't, or when it doesn't evolve or manifest, whatever.
Yeah. And I think
it's like, I know, but that side of it is I never see you getting really upset. I always see you, like if you've played that game of almost wanting it too much, and which almost pushes it away, you're not upset when it doesn't happen because you're all automatically mind balancing going, oh, it wasn't meant to be, here's the positive or negative. And I think we both do that pretty well. But in this case, you were so different. You were so different with the whole thing.
Yeah, it was very interesting. It's I think when you're there trying to convince yourself about something, like you say, you're almost over talking it type thing. You're almost selling it back to yourself because it's not actually true for you. So I guess I wasn't attached to this place because I really felt that if it was true for me, it would happen. So I didn't have to worry about it. Like creation is just a mechanical thing. You don't have to worry about whether you're going to get it or you're not. Like if you're a true creator, you don't sit there wondering whether you're going to get it or not. You just know you're going to get it. If it feels absolutely 100% true for you. And that's the key. Like if it's come from your ego and I want $1 million and I want, like a Porsche out the front and I want a big house and all that sort of stuff. But if that's not true for you, you're never going to get it. Or if you are going to get it, you're not going to be happy with it. You won't be fulfilled. So I don't want creations like that. Like, because I know that they're a waste of time, basically. So it's more about creation that actually feel true for you in the first place. And that's where you've got to come from that point in the very first place.
I'm going to push back a little bit on the kind of, is it true for you side of it, just so that, because sometimes that can be very quite generalized if people don't understand where you're coming from with it. And so to revert back to what Jason is going to be teaching us with the Unite Challenge is more the things of, say, maybe it's not that it's not true for you to have $1 million and a Porsche parked in the driveway of a big house. Maybe it's not a case of it's not true for you. In his regard, he's actually saying, well, you have maybe a vision board or you have all these intentions and all these things, but there are unconscious and subconscious beliefs that are blocking you, that are sabotaging you from even taking the first steps to that financial health and wealth, that, health, wealth, and relationship health and wealth. Like it's kind of, and even later in the week, he's going to talk about the 5 bank accounts, and he's coming at it from a standpoint of abundance, and the financial bank account is what he believes is the easiest one to fill up, to have an abundance of. Now, many of us included, would disagree with that because we're like, well, actually, we nailed all the other things in our life over the last 7 or 8 years, but that financial one has actually been there because we've only literally just within the last probably 3 to 6 months really started to see where we've had just some of those little things. there's little computer programs running that we weren't even aware that were there and running. And for some reason, they've just shifted. There was no kind of point in time for me. There was like, here's the shift, it's happening. It's just a whole bunch of things that have been laying on top of each other.
Yeah. There's about 12 different foundational beliefs. And you would have heard some of them, I'm not worthy and I don't trust myself or the world. And these things that just sit there from, way back when we were in our theta state, between being in the womb to when we're about 7 years old, we're in that theta state. So we're just little sponges. We would have seen this with kids all the time. They take on exactly what their parents say, all the things that they shouldn't say.
And or learn new languages without having to study them.
They're in that state where anything that gets put into the brain actually is inserted into the brain type thing. Like they're just, everything they hear is being taken in. So there's where our foundational beliefs come from. And so they will play out. Generally, I've seen over the years that people play them out in one particular area of their life. So they'll always have relationship issues. Other parts of their life are great. They've got a great career. They've got tons of money, but they can't get their relationships right. For us, it was money. Like our relationship's awesome. We travel the world. We do all this stuff, really cool stuff, and stuff that we really enjoy, but we could not for the life of us get finances right. And so that's where our foundational beliefs started showing up. So you generally find that, and health is the other one, the three big areas. So
I just want to point out with relationships as well, because a lot of people, when you first hear relationship, will always sort of bring it to, first and foremost, a romantic relationship. Secondary would be your relationships with friends, family, others. But I liked when I heard recently that they talk about, in internet marketing, they talk about the three big niches: health, wealth, and relationships. But the relationships was changed to connection. And I liked the idea that it's health, wealth, and connection.
Yes.
And that's ultimately what the Unite Challenge is about, because it's connection with self, connection with others, connection with, a higher power, and the world at large.
Yeah. I like the word connection instead of relationships. It's good. Yeah. I think relationships have a lot of connotations these days. So
it's the power of the word, and Jason talks about the linguistic aspect. Like, we do put a lot of prejudgments and beliefs around words that we hear.
I know. That's why I can't use the word God, because I got brought up as a Catholic, and so it has so many connotations that I have not been able to let go of. So I'd never use that word now. Not that I don't infer that that's what it is that I'm speaking about, but I just can't use that word. But that's because of my upbringing. So definitely words are hugely powerful for us as human beings, and your language will change as you grow in consciousness and expand, and you let go of certain words that you'll never say again, and you'll never hear me generally talk about what I'm thinking. It's always about what I'm feeling. Language is a big giveaway when you're working with people as to where they're at. Definitely.
Yeah.
What's really going on for them, because they'll slip up with their words. They might mean one thing, but they'll slip up with their words.
Well, and it's not a case of, they're purposely trying to say preach one thing but live or experience another, because sometimes it's like you're wanting to be more conscious, more aware, living life differently to say how you've lived previously, but it's almost like that tension is still between where you want to be and where those beliefs are still holding you. And
language would be that giveaway.
And that's why I think this challenge this week is going to be hugely beneficial. I'm going to be as naughty as I possibly can and get copies of these videos, because I know 100% just how much is in it. I mean, Jason seems to have a way of, I guess, articulating a lot of what I deeply feel inside, and he just has a way of finding words to kind of describe it better than what I do. You're particularly good. Like, I even started this whole thing with kind of like trying to say it, and I'm like, no, I need Matt to kind of come in and say it. So, and that's where that stream of consciousness and that ease and flow and all those things come into it. But, both you and Jason have been on this journey for a very long time. you know, and
when you work with people, I think it's it's your own journey as well, absolutely, and being very observant of that. But also working with other people, you start to really see how humans work. And that's what Jason has really mastered, is actually how humans work. Like, he's very clever at seeing what's really going on, like not what people are saying, but what's really going on, you know, actuality, not reality. And I think he doesn't hesitate to actually pull people up on that and actually say, this is what's going on. Because if you don't do that, then people just don't see it. You know, we just coast along type thing. So they're the wake-up calls. Like, he just, when I listen to Jason, I just have so many wake-up calls of my own behavior still. And I was like, oh, shit, I did do that. Or, oh my God, he is right. Like, crap. So like, and awareness is everything. Like, it's impossible to be a creator of your own life without full awareness of what's going on. That's what it takes. And so something like the Unite Challenge is just such a massive opportunity to see. That's why I'm going into it. Even though I've done a decade and a half of this work, I actually am really looking forward to Jason's take on things, because everyone has a different take on stuff.
Oh, and we're just sponges. Really, if we're almost even back, like in that state you were saying, that childlike state of theater of being a sponge, just bring it all in. Bring in somebody else's perspective.
Curious about how somebody else can look at something. Like, oh my God, that's me. Yes, and have fun with it. Like, it's not sit there going, oh God, like, yeah, that's me. Sometimes it's embarrassing, and it's like,
well, what was his statement of that? Is like, where you sort of go, well, isn't that wonderful that I just look like a complete fool right now by saying something, but then somebody pointed out I did it wrong or whatever. Isn't that wonderful? I can use that as a learning experience.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's being curious. It's like, it is that childlike state, and it's not being childish, but being childlike, which is very different. And that is that curiosity, and it's what all the greatest inventors, Einstein talked about it nonstop, about being childlike, and in that, in innocence, which is in no sense, not having a sense about something, actually going back to that child state where, you know, a baby is brand new to this world, doesn't know anything about the world. And so you're absorbing everything, you're looking around, you're taking everything in, which is that theta state like we're talking about. You have to take in all the stuff, because you have to learn how to operate here as a human being. This is not natural for you to be a human being and in form. Your natural state is energy, infinite energy, where infinite possibilities can exist. Then suddenly we find ourselves in a human form with 3D reality, with time and space that actually limits us. And it's very difficult as human beings. This is why we struggle so much as human beings, because we're trying to stuff the infinite into something that's now limited.
A little package.
Yeah, it's now limited. So if you're struggling, that's why you're struggling. It's not because you're doing anything wrong. It's like we are trying to navigate how to be here as human beings in something that's not natural for us. And it takes effort. So then we become limited to then realize that we were unlimited the entire time. And that's the journey we take. So,
all right, well, that is pretty much, I think, the perfect intro into coming and enjoying the Unite Challenge. So the Unite Challenge is starting today in a couple of hours' time. Highly recommend you come along and join. You can go to the link that's on the screen, roamingincome.com/unite, register. If you just want to go straight into the Facebook group, just send me a message and I'll send you the link to the Facebook group. And I'll also send you the link to the first pre-training, which you might be able to squeeze in before we go live. But today's one is the most important. I honestly can't see how it's possible to unite with others and unite on a bigger scale around the world, where things like segregation and diversity and differences of opinions can just melt away. I don't believe we can get to those points by sort of shortcutting working on ourselves first. We need to see where we're keeping ourselves limited, not just in the form. Limited and separate, yeah, like we don't have to be.
Yourself. Yeah, the more you see parts of yourself, the more open you are to other people naturally. It's a natural progression.
Yeah, and it's
the best thing you can do is connect with yourself and actually accept all parts of yourself, because then you don't have an issue with anything that's going on around you.
And I have a feeling that with our experience over the last 7.5 years of traveling the world, knowing what we know and what we love to study, our tolerance has dramatically increased by becoming world citizens. So we have this advantage, I guess. It's almost like an unfair advantage of making the decision all those years ago to become a global citizen. So our levels of tolerance are at a level, and even that's a judgment in saying it, but it's like I feel more expansive in my openness to accept more things, more cultures, more religions, more different beliefs. I can feel like I can accept them all. I don't have to take them on board, but because I'm still actually looking at my own beliefs, and I'm getting caught out every now and again where certain things are like, oh, why did that push my buttons, or what do I not accept in myself? But that's the journey. But the journey starts with where this thing is starting today. Connection with self, just these few little tips, tricks, tools, tactics, I don't know what you want to call them, but Jason is going to be giving us things that we can practice with, and we can practice that connection with self, and then move on to tomorrow to start looking at how we can connect and, be a hero to somebody else. And really, I just wanted to kind of end this session now, and I might come back again on another channel in another half an hour or so. Maybe I'll call you back in, but you've got other work to do. But I just wanted to share the story of the other day we were walking up the beach with the homeowner here, the lady who owns his home. I'm sitting at her desk right now. And her and her husband have had a pretty rough year. He's had a lot of surgery. He's still getting around on crutches, and he's been in a lot of pain. And for anybody who's ever experienced pain can shift your vibration to being not who you truly are. And we're walking up the beach, and she said to us, I really just want to thank you both. We just spent 5 days with her. And she said, I really just want to thank you both for bringing joy back into the house. And we were both sort of a bit taken aback, weren't we? And it was like, oh, we're not doing anything.
I didn't feel like we had done anything out of the ordinary, like to what we normally have. But I guess when you're in a space, obviously they're in a household here together, and he's been in so much pain, it's affected both of them quite dramatically.
Yeah.
So to have a new energy come in that is full of life and loving.
Well, we were also here very childlike. I mean, we arrived here with such joy in the fact of, holy crap, look what we're going to be living for the next few months.
Yeah.
And being able to walk on the beach. And I said to both of them, the moment that we open that gate and let the dogs run down onto the beach, and the way that they run and play and into the water and out of the water and picking up sticks, this freedom that they are portraying to me, and pure joy.
Yeah.
If the law of reflection kicks in, that is freaking unbelievable. I've been feeling so amazing. So perhaps it is completely unconsciously oozing out of us, because we've been childlike and curious since arriving here. And it also feels really amazing to know that just in those first 5 days that we made a difference to two people's lives that have been through a lot of pain and a lot of heartache over this last 12 months.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you just don't know how you affect people. Like I felt quite out of sync, actually, funnily enough, this whole week that I was with them. And it wasn't anything to do with them. I just felt out of sync myself. And I think I was a bit hormonal in the end. I think that's what it sort of came down to. But, so I was almost beating myself up at times, like, oh, I'm not my usual sort of flowing social self type thing. Like I feel a bit out of whack. And then for her to say that, I was like, wow, isn't that interesting? Like, here I was, like, not tapping into any of that all week. And I guess that's what, it comes down to, those 2,000 pieces of information we were talking about. It's like, what are you focused on? Are you focused on, beating yourself up and, oh, I'm not my usual self and I shouldn't be doing this. So I said the wrong thing there. I did the wrong thing there. Blah, blah, blah. And that's essentially what my week looked like, which was interesting. So I got to observe what I was doing. full on judging, but I was definitely in observation mode a lot of the time, going, wow, this is really different for me. I feel quite different.
But how bizarre that, yeah, how bizarre
Yeah.
that for whatever reason, I mean, normally I'm quite energy sensitive and I would sort of get pulled in with you, but I think I was just in sort of, so like, I think it's all about the dogs, like seeing the dogs run like that and the joy that they have. It's been filling me with joy. And, you know, this couple are also just 100% our people. I love talking to them. So I was not aware of the reality that you were creating. So it didn't affect me. It didn't have an impact. But it's one of those situations where you were having this experience, I was having this experience, but then Susan had her own experience and she shared it with us, and it impacted both of us dramatically. And I think that's the coolest part about this concept of uniting, where we can get out of our own way internally or within ourselves, see that we can connect, be a hero, as using Jason's words. We don't need to be a hero to anybody. It's just be you. And those little ripple effects do make a difference. And I think that if more of those ripple effects start to happen, then we do get a global uniting that is beyond any of this pushback, any of this kind of resistance, any of this, I need to make a stand against something. It's like, it's been happening for eons. It's the definition of insanity. Don't keep doing the same thing over and over, trying to get a different result. We've got to try something new. Let's try this.
And even just come back to the point we made originally, was a creator is never against anything. So
I love that.
When you take that on board, then you get to truly create a new world, a totally new world. You don't keep recreating the old world. You get a new world to create with. And to me, that is everything. So,
super, super powerful.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, we'll call it a wrap here. I'll come back shortly, so keep an eye out if you want to come on and have a chat. Fiona, if you're watching this, I would love to have a chat with you as well. Fiona Crawford has been so amazing in the Unite Challenge group. She's doing amazing things in there, so I'd love to have a chat with her. Otherwise, I'll see if anybody else wants to come and have a chat. If you want to push back at what Nat had said, that all beliefs are not true, come and tell me why, and we'll discuss that further.
Yeah, let's have a talk about it. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, baby.
Okay.
Bye.